Let's bring in now a man who knows the president very well, who served as his acting chief of staff earlier this year. Mick Mulvaney joins us from his hometown of, I'm not certain where, but Mick Mulvaney, the former acting chief of staff to Donald Trump, joins us now. Thanks for joining us, Mick. Tell us, who do you think will be president come January the 20th next year?
Good morning. If the trends hold, it would be the president. Here's why I say that, is that the president has exceeded the polling data in just about every single state. I think in Florida, for example, the consensus was he was losing by 5 or 6 or 7 points. He wins by maybe 3 there. That's a big swing. And if that margin holds in all the other states, then the president probably does well in Pennsylvania and Michigan. Obviously, states are too close to call this evening, but time and again, we've seen the president outperforming the polls this evening. So I think he's probably feeling better right now than Joe Biden is, but again, very, very close, as many of us expected.
Yeah, well, even if you give the Democrats Arizona, and there's some argy-bargy about that, but it seems to me that if he holds 2 of Wisconsin, Michigan and Pennsylvania, then he can't be beaten. And he's ahead in all of those at the moment. We do expect, especially in Pennsylvania, of course, the postal votes to be, the early votes to be counted tomorrow, which will be good for the Democrats. But you'd back him in to win 2 of those 3 states, wouldn't you?
That's correct. And of course, that does get him across the finish line. The Arizona situation is very unusual. I'm talking to friends on the ground out there right now, and they are surprised with the folks who are calling Arizona for Biden, say it's way too early to do that. Not everybody has done that, so there's a little bit of confusion on the ground out there. But you're right. If the president wins Pennsylvania, or 2 or 3 out of Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, then it's over this evening, or over as soon as those states are counted. Keep in mind, Pennsylvania may take several days, but it may not come to that, because if the president does win Michigan and Wisconsin, then Pennsylvania will be relatively irrelevant. I think what's sort of gone under the radar so far tonight is that the House, excuse me, I was trying to say again, it's kind of early. The Republicans have apparently held their majority in the Senate, and that would be big news as well, and would also be indicative probably of a presidential victory at the same time.
Yeah, Mick, tell me about the president and COVID. You were acting chief of staff earlier this year when this issue was hitting, when this health crisis was hitting. It has been a big political problem for him, in my mind, mainly because of the way it's undercut his economic success. But what do you make of the argument the Democrats have run, that have blamed him for the way the virus has run rampant around America, and suggesting that it's cost him votes because of the management of the coronavirus pandemic?
A couple different answers to that. Certainly, at some level, the president's handling of COVID crisis didn't go over well with voters. Biden consistently polled ahead of the president over the last several weeks and months about handling of the COVID crisis, while at the same time the president polled ahead of Biden on the issue of the economy. What I think is really interesting, however, it's not getting much attention yet. It may, if the president ultimately wins, is the job the media did here to try and frighten people about how bad COVID was in order to hurt the president. And what you might have seen this evening, is that the media succeeded in frightening all of the Democrat voters. The Democrats typically have a much better ground game than the Republicans in this country in terms of grassroots, get out the vote, those types of activities. But we didn't see that this year because so many Democrats were afraid to come out of their house. The Republicans actually had a better ground game in most states than the Democrats. So it would be an interesting irony if the media tried to use COVID to beat the president, and it ultimately is what cost Biden a shot at the White House.
Yeah, I think it's another area where Donald Trump has teased out some mainstream values here. A lot of people are very scared of the coronavirus, and I don't want to downplay its significance, but it's been palpable to me travelling around this country that Americans are very pragmatic about it. A lot of people, some people are locking in their houses and staying away from others, but a lot more people, I think, are pragmatic. They want to go about their lives. They don't want to face lockdowns and big government rules to control the pandemic.
I think that's fair, and I think you've seen some governors make some decisions based upon that. Governor Ron DeSantis in Florida made the decision that the number of cases really wasn't the key metric. The issue is really whether or not there's health care capacity to provide services to the people that need it. The disease is not as deadly as we thought it was. It is a dangerous disease. There is no question, especially to vulnerable populations, but it's not as deadly as we thought it was 3, 6, 8 months ago. And many governors have decided they'll tolerate the higher number of cases as long as it doesn't overwhelm their health care abilities that they have in their state. So you've seen a different reaction in different states, different reactions in blue states than red states. Unfortunately, everything in this country is politicized right now. But I do think you're right. I think the president tapped into sort of that COVID weariness and said, look, it's serious. We get that, but it's not worth destroying the economy over. We're still interested in whether or not we have a job on the backside of this, still interested in whether or not our children will be able to have jobs when they graduate from school, still interested in whether or not we'll be able to take care of our parents financially if we need to. So again, if the president wins, I think the message you're hearing is that people think COVID is serious, and it is, but they were more interested in seeing what comes after COVID than they were in seeing what happened with the disease itself.
Mick, we're nearly out of time, and it's great to speak to someone who's worked so closely with the president. You're saying, of course, it's more likely that he stays in for a second term than loses tonight, but I can't let you go without first asking about that chaotic White House. There's been so many chiefs of staff. There have been so many people coming and going at senior levels. Is it a shambles in there, or is there some method in the president's madness?
People forget that Barack Obama had 4 chiefs of staff in his first term. The average life expectancy of a chief of staff is someplace between 16 and 18 months. I made it about 15. I'll take that. It's always hard to be a chief of staff to any president in the first term because the president's not only running the country, but also running for re-election. So my guess is whoever comes after Mark Meadows, I don't expect Mark to stay on. He's done a tremendous job under really difficult circumstances. He's a good friend of mine. But my guess is whoever has the job in the second term will have a much easier job of the time of things that we did in the first term.
Thanks so much for joining us, Mick. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.